Hi, this is tape 4, and I'm trying to continue to speak about my time that I had at the clinic, the mental health clinic that I had gone to for 11 years. I want to bring up some of the things that did happen to me over there. One of the times is they noticed my pulse was 130. My doctor, 2 weeks before, had raised my medication. I didn't know whether I should stay on the same level or go down, or if it was possible maybe that the meds were raising it up. So I asked to speak to my doctor, and I was told no. I asked if they could tell my doctor what my pulse is. They said no. I asked, I was asking the social worker if I could leave a note and they could give it to her. She said no. So I picked up a booklet in their hallway, which had rules and regulations for patients and of the clinic. I found a section in there that said you have a right to privilege communications with the people who are treating you, including doctor, etc. So I pointed out to her, showed her the booklet, and says, I have a right to notify my doctor that my pulse is that high. Because it was the first time it had been 130 at their clinic, and it kind of frightened me. She looked and she said, "That's right, the rules are that, and your rules are being violated. Ha ha. Nobody's telling your doctor that your pulse is that high." So I had no choice. I had to wait a whole month until I got to the doctor and told her, the psychiatrist, about my pulse. I told her it was like that for a month, and they refused to tell her, and they refused to let me write a note, anything. And she, not long after, had me transferred from that social worker to another one, and that one was the one I did get was a little better than I had previously gotten. That was one of the incidences. Another one was I had very bad teeth and had constant infections. I found a dentist to come up my house, and he had to pull numerous teeth, sometimes up to 5 at a time. And when he was done, there was still a problem. I had roots in the gums, and they were all infected. I had pus all across the top of my gums, just coming out, and I had fevers. I had pain and headaches and stuff from that infection. They had to keep giving me antibiotics, but it would not clear it up at all. And I practiced with a social worker to try to get to the dentist, the closest one to my house. I had no one else that could take me because it only opened during the daytime hours, and there was no one I could ask, no family that drives at the time that could take me. So I make it to the building, and I'm just about the next day to make an appointment. I get a phone call from my social worker that her supervisor says she can't take me. And I ask why. "I don't know," she says. "They won't let me take you." She went on to say, "I know you have really bad infections. You belong going to a dentist. I'd like to take you, but if I do, I will lose my job. I'm sorry." So I had to go through meeting with supervisors, directors, constantly for like almost a year. They would not tell me why I couldn't get a ride from my social worker. They wouldn't go into why, and they just left me that way, watching me suffer and everything. And it took a year till they finally said, "Okay, your social worker could take you," and stuff. And I think that was very mean. And when I did go, they took out 8 roots, and they done it awake because I was too nervous to be put to sleep. And after I had that done for a while, it took. They were concerned it wasn't healing, like it wasn't closing up, and they didn't know why, so they had to send me to a specialist that was 1 street away from me to see what was wrong, but they didn't find any reason why it didn't heal. They although they tested, some skin from my gums. But I suffered badly, and it's so cruel to do that to somebody who didn't do anything. There was other incidences too, which they have an emergency services in the evening, after hours that the clinic is closed. I deal with claustrophobia and also agoraphobia. There are times I'm in the house and I feel claustrophobic. I got to go back outside and stand around for a while and then come back in. And I was going through a tough time that night. I was tired. I discouraged. The panic was in the house. The panic was outside. And I just broke down and cried. And I called for support of the emergency services in the evening. I called, and it was a male psychiatric nurse who was familiar with me on the phone. I tell him what was going on. He says, "You need to leave." I says, "What? What do you mean by that?" "You heard me. You need to leave," he repeated. I says, "I don't know what you mean." He said, "It's time you kill yourself." I said, "What?" I mean, here I am, I'm calling for support. I did not tell him I had any suicide feelings or anything. Suicide did not even cross my mind when I called the support line. And it's totally, it really hurt. It really came as a shock that they would say something like that to me. And I just got off the phone, and I'm not the only one who heard it. My brother, who also was next to the phone, he overheard him say it, and he couldn't get over it, that they would talk like that. So there was that went on. There was also other things that I had to keep under wraps that I didn't even tell the center because I had my pills over my head. If I would have reported things, they would have pulled my pills. I would have had no place to go. So there was a lot of things that I kept to myself to not get in trouble. One is one of the psychiatrists I had as a doctor was a good person in every way, with new medications, treated me right and everything, but did one thing to me that I was very uncomfortable with for the longest time before I could look her in the face. She's the one who diagnosed me with mitral valve prolapse. She was keeping tabs of my blood pressure, pulse. She was one who liked to check it herself rather than trust the nurses or whatever she wanted to see for herself. Well, she would have me unfasten my bra and unfasten my shirt and lift my shirt up so she could listen with the stethoscope. I admit I'm not a very thin person at the time, and I didn't think nothing of it. I trusted her. I didn't think nothing of it. Well, one day, she put her hand and ran her hand on my breast. I was totally shocked. It took me by surprise. She was a married woman, has a husband. I didn't say nothing. When she realized what she was doing, she pulled away from me. And we didn't speak about it after that. I brought people in with me to my appointment after that. I didn't want to be alone with her for a while. It took me months, maybe close to a year, before we could look at each other. We just would speak without looking each other in the face. I don't believe the clinic would have believed me. I mean, I knew other people who had her as a doctor, and it came as a shock for them. Not long after, she implemented a rule that she wanted social workers accompanying the patients in her appointments, which I think she did that because she wanted to make sure she never does anything, temptation of anything wrong. After that, I thought about it, that I had my heart checked many times by physicians at emergency rooms, other physicians, and they had never asked me to lift up my bra and lift up my shirt or anything like that. They used to listen to it through my clothing. So it just stunned me like that. I felt like I felt embarrassed, so embarrassed, like I might have been used just to look at. You know, somebody just wanted to see a body or something. I don't know. I just didn't say nothing to them. Later on, a social worker that I worked with, that was on my case quite a while with me. She was a married woman. She was, I think, a little younger than me, a few years younger than me. And she used to take me out a lot, going out and practicing to try to get out there, which was, I felt, was nice of her, because not all the social workers did their job. I mean, some would take you in the car, like maybe 2 out of 11 years that I was there really took me out in the cars. The others, 1 time, 2 time, if they felt like it, you know, not often. But the one who took me out for a long time, she was my worker for about, I'd say about 3 years. And she was acting strange. She didn't want to, I couldn't talk to her about anything. She would say, we're working on it, like kind of meaning, shut up, I don't want to hear your problems. And I used to kind of have to listen to all her problems and stuff. And one day she breaks down in tears and she's saying, you're not attracted to me. I noticed when you go in a store, you don't look at people that look anything like me, like blonde hair or tall or whatever. And I was kind of shocked. I mean, she was crying. And I said to her, you know, I care about you, like, you know, like almost like family member, because you've helped me a lot. But clients are not supposed to look at workers in that way. So that was the end of that conversation. You know, she didn't bring it up after that. And then there was another worker that took her place for maybe 2 times while she was on vacation. That woman, that worker, had feelings for me. She did not touch me. She just told me how she felt towards me. And she wasn't my worker. She was just someone substituting for my caseworker. So I didn't say much. And, you know, she treated me nice when I was in the car, and she was a very polite person. But she admitted she had feelings for me. Well, the clinic found out that she did, and I got blamed. I got called in the office, and they told me they wanted me to lie and say that she had touched me, which that person had not. She was a 26-year-old, and at the time I was in my late 30s. And I says, I wasn't brought up to lie. I won't make up stuff that ain't true. So they told me, if you don't tell the truth, you don't tell what we want you to say, you will be punished. We will get you for that, is what they said. So they turned around and then they started to try to embarrass me in the clinic. I wasn't allowed, no female worker, that I was untrustable with their workers, when it actually was the situation was their workers weren't trustable to be with me, you know. And so the next thing I knew, you know, they started harassing me. Everybody in the place would stare at me strangely, you know. Here's a woman that ain't to be trusted with female workers. They put me with some male workers that were very bad, that harassed me, picked on me. I lived with 2 men, and I felt better to have a female worker. I felt more trusting, more safer in a physical manner, because they were female, and being that I live with 2 men, it's nice when you could talk to another female, which I didn't have.